You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again for episode 2 of your bi-weekly options extravaganza, known far and wide, hither and yon, as the Option Block. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting Options Insider Radio Network. Easy for me to say. If I sound a little out of breath, it's because I was running back from the other side of the studio doing something, and then the music ended, and I had to kick the show off proper. Don't want to keep you folks waiting out there in the live. Of course, if you want to join all that fun on the pro side, and welcome to all the new folks who've joined over the last week. Saw a lot of new faces coming in there. Of course, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to get access to all that stuff. What does that get you? Get you, of course, the exclusive pro podcast feed with me. There's almost 200 episodes in there already. So there's a lot of great content waiting for you already. That's all evergreen. You can really just consume it at your leisure. And it's really good stuff. We just put the Flow Master just came in, did a great pro Q&A yesterday. That is in there now. Of course, all of our Options Oddities episodes, all of the great pro Q&As we've ever done. And they are legion with some of the best minds in the world of options and derivatives and crypto sprinkled in there as well. That gets you access to all that. Participate in all the new ones. Get all your questions bumped to the top of the list. Of course, great giveaways. Today's the first, so we have to start compiling the data for who's eligible so we could give away the November Pro Trading Crate. We'll do that, I think, on one of the next week's shows. We'll see which one. We did on Options Bootcamp last time. Maybe we'll mix it up a little bit, but that is fun. And then, of course, you get access to the live and everything else we do there. TheOptionInsider.com/pro is the place to go as I catch my breath and collect myself here. And let's see who's joining me on the program today to bring you an options palooza of the ages. First, let's go out to a quiet, nay, a sleepy, nay, a tranquil hamlet known as St. Charles, where we are joined once again by the uncleist of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, welcome back, sir. How go things in the land of the uncleist?
Nobody out uncles the Mike. That's all I got to say about that.
Nobody. If you think you're going to step to Uncle Mike with his uncleness, you best think again, because he's bringing it.
Great uncle since I was in my 20s.
You got a lot of practice. You got it down to a science there. And then also joining us from the dark and stormy, some might say terrifying, Storm Last Shores of Maine. Well, we are joined once again. I don't know if he's an uncle. I guess maybe we'll find out. He is the rockingest of lobsters, Mr. Andrew GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com. Mr. G, welcome back to the show, sir. How go your uncle credentials?
I'm an uncle many, many times over.
Oh
my gosh. How many? I think 15 or something.
Oh, wow. So you're going to vie with Uncle Mike. You might be the uncleist of Andrews. I don't know.
But are you a great uncle?
I'm not a great uncle.
Yeah, see, I've been a great uncle since my 20s.
I'm an excellent uncle, but I'm not a great uncle.
Yeah, I've been a great uncle since my 20s. Okay. Very few. When I leave this earth, very few people will be able to have had as much great uncle experience as I have.
It's little known, listeners, but Uncle Mike is actually 87 years old. So it's a surprising fact. He doesn't sound like it. He sounds very spry for his age. But nonetheless, we have two men battling it out for uncledom. Who will win? Let's find out. It is time for the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Trading Block, the portion of the show where we talk about what the heck is trading out there. And of course, we're coming off the heels yesterday of another big 2+% rally in the S&P and similar rallies in the other major indices because Powell, in a rare show of some support for the markets, actually knocked us back a little bit from the edge, and the markets took off to the races, of course, maybe hinting at the fact that maybe they could dial back some of the super aggressive rate increases down the road. We shall see. Coming into today, we've had a bit of a topsy-turvy day already. Markets were rallying early, then we're kind of selling off a little bit again. Not that long, right before the showtime, we were down about 0.5% or so in the S&P, and kicking off the show right now, we're pretty much back to unched. So it's one of those days, listeners. Already done a decent amount of living, and the show is just beginning. So as we're kicking off the show, the markets were mostly red. Now we're kind of mixed. The Dow is still off about 0.5%. Like I said, S&P is pretty much unched on the day. NASDAQ up about 0.2%. When we kicked off the show, VIX was hanging out at about a 20.5. It's actually a little bit below that now, almost down to about 20 1/3. So VIX continues to erode, but down about 1.25 points from where it was on Monday's show. VVIX, so the vol of vol itself, at about an 81 out there. That's down 6 points from the show on Monday. VXX, our old friend, back on our radar again. 15 even, down about 0.6 points. UVXY, man, they best be coming with that reverse split soon. 760 when we kicked off the show, down about 0.4 points. And for all you math majors out there, well shy of the 10 handle, which is, of course, that magical, mythical line that when you cross that, that's when people start talking about reverse splitting UVXY. So I expect that reverse split to be imminent, maybe by the end of the show. Not quite that rapidly, but intriguing time, 760. How low can UVXY go before they prop it back up again? SVIX at about a 14, up about 0.4 points. This is interesting times. Obviously, SVIX is up, but we're not seeing super sharp sell-offs in VIX, so we're not seeing those pops in SVIX. It is gradually moving up, but is this the amount of performance you want from SVIX? I'm curious. If you're out there trading SVIX, you happy with this? You like this? Is this good? You want a little bit more bang for your buck? I'd be curious to hear what you think out there. Obviously, the options numbers haven't really picked up yet. So from an options perspective, people are still playing the wait and see game. Are you trading the underlying? I'm curious. Let me know. UVIX 680. So it's giving UVXY a run for its money. Who can get to zero faster? 680 right now for UVIX, down about 0.5 point. And VolQ, aka the at the money vol of the NASDAQ, 25.5, down about 1 point from where it was on the show on Monday. All right. Let the uncle battle resume. First, let's go out to the uncleist of Mikes, the guy who, by the way, listeners, if you missed the Monday episode of the show, tried to pull off some, as we put it in the title of the show, cowardly skullduggery. Let's see what he has in store for us this week, listeners.
So if a football team wins on a trick play, they still win.
There was no winning. It was a tie on Monday's show. No, it was both losers. No one got any points.
No, I agree. Neither of us did. It was not a great performance, but I'm going to do everything that I can to win, and I have the right to pass. I have the right to pass. That is my right.
I was going to say, Brutus the Barber. You both missed Brutus the Barber.
Hey, just like when you own a call option, you have the right, but not the obligation to exercise it. And I exercised my right on Monday. So I have no shame of anything with which I've done. It's the basis for which this show is started, with our rights and obligations. You can't take that away from me, and you're mocking it. So with that, though, as per usual, when you mock things like you mocked my hometown saying that we all had dysentery or something like that, I'll move on.
I think it was Rickets. But hey, I digress.
It was rickets, or was it botulism, or what all was it? You some other type of.
I think it was rickets, as I recall. Dysentery. I'm not going to go that far, but rickets. Yeah, I think we could see it. Maybe scurvy.
I mean, the fact that we stand in the streets and we have our option block listening clubs. I mean, St. Charles closes all their businesses from noon to 1 on Monday and Thursday, so they can listen to the option block, and that's how you treat your fan base.
I'm still waiting for my check from Skippy's Euros and Lemonade.
Man, so I'll move on.
I've sent more business to that freaking Euro place than I could count. I'm still waiting for my check.
Well, they're not just St. Charles based, though. They're also in South Elgin. They're more of a chain. That's who you're supporting. But
there you go. Even more reason to cut me a check. They're big. They got deep pockets.
There you go. All right. So anyway, with this markets, not trying to take away or steal thunder from around the block, but the Fed announcements that are coming out on the 14th, or when the Fed meets on the 13th and the 14th, that's what I think we're going to be waiting on now, because it's kind of weird in that we had a little bit of a move today or after 9 o'clock. We had roughly a 40-point drop from peak to trough. Right after we had news come out. I forget, it was the CPE, PPI, some initial number came out. I forget what it was. And markets dropped by roughly 40 points. And so from there, about almost 50 points. And so from there, markets kind of gradually rallied back to where we're at break even right now for the day, or now we're 1 point down. And so I think that the markets are really closely watching the Fed in the hopes that maybe all of the major rate hikes are going to at least become less, maybe not necessarily go away, but at least become less. And I think the market's hoping and banking on that type of a thing, or the market bulls are anyway, in a situation like that. The other thing of note right now, we do have silver. Silver or just then looking at SLV approaching the 21 mark. And just with the move with which we've had in that, just over the course of the last week or so, that's over a 5% move in SLV. And that's not, it's not like it was back in the old days when 5% move was nothing, but based upon recent market times, that is kind of a big deal. On top of that, we're back in the 20s again. And so that's something with which I'm keeping an eye on, just as kind of a gauge of where the commodities are going, with where we're at with things. Speaking of commodities, let's take a look at oil. Oil's actually up $1.33 on the day. We are in the lower 80s again. And so we're not over the 100 level. We still are not where we have been, so to speak. But oil is kind of hanging on there. And so with oil, it's not to where it once was back in the biggest fear time that we had earlier in the year with the Russia situation. It seems like the market doesn't care about that anymore. We did touch $1 or 130 at one point back in March. We were in the 120s again in June. And so it's kind of been hanging out at the 80 level as it's low over the course of the last month or so, because we bottomed out in late September around the high 70s. And then we kind of came around the high 70s again a little over a week ago. And so we're just kind of hanging out at that 80 mark with oil, at least at this point in time. So it's not going away, but it's not going any lower it's not going significantly lower by any means. We're still quite a ways above where we were a couple of years ago. And we're obviously well above the negative pricing that we had during the COVID time. So we do have that. Bitcoin's still awful. We all know that. And going through it, natural gas, we're not getting a lot of movement there. And then in terms of the sectors for the day today, there's really no sector that's really sticking out by any means, which is to be expected. We're not having a lot of move in the overall market itself. So that's really no surprise there. And then finally, the thing that I think is showing that this market is so Fed-based, I think we all know that, or would all agree to that. But the thing that's really showing that is that we're just having this rally in the 10-year. Just in looking at it, ever since we had the announcements yesterday of where we are with the Fed might not raise rates, we've had a lot of buyers in bond land. And so where that's going to go, who knows? But we've definitely had a lot of movement along those lines. And with that, while I'm sitting here waiting for the Fed announcement coming out in a couple weeks, I'll also be looking at non-farm tomorrow, of course, like always. But while I'm waiting for those things, I'll turn it back over to Mark, who can turn it over to Andrew and let us know what's going on in the VIX world.
All right, let's do just that, Mr. Rock Lobster, sir. A lot going on this week. A lot going on today. Kind of a topsy-turvy day, even though we're hanging out unched right now. What is lighting up your tape out there, sir?
I just wanted to remark, very few option programs can work Scurvy and Rickets seamlessly into the dialogue.
That's why we're the best. We're not only the first, but we are the best.
That's the listeners, you just can't buy that kind of quality anywhere on the. As a matter of fact, this quality is free. Just download it on your podcast, Apple Store, blah, blah, blah. Anyway. Well, let's see, VIX. So once again, the market just, what do we have, a 3% update? It's something I've been talking with some students all week. Like, hey, the liquidity providers had kept the bid going hard. Basically, as much as possible, not letting the NOV 30 to the NOV, NOV 30, DES1, DES2 straddles really decay at all. So yesterday, the NOV 30 SPY straddle was probably 460 going into the announcement. I think it closed at $13, the 495 straddle or something like that. It was quite impressive rally on that thing. So, of course, when you have that kind of upside volatility, it is hard for VIX to go down. Now that there's the new Twitter, I see all kinds of stuff that I use, like. The amount of stuff in my feed has gone up probably tenfold, I guess. It's like, oh my gosh, look at all the stuff these people tweet. So, everybody's like, oh, the VIX is broken. It doesn't work anymore. Blah, 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 blah. And I just don't think that's correct. I mean, it does work. The problem is we are this is in the last 15 years, with the great financial crisis, probably the longest extended, what I would call in modern VIX history since VIX was launched. That was the most, and we have Russell check on this, but that was probably the greatest sustained realized vol for a period of time, like almost a year, 8 months or something. And then you had time number 2, I believe, was the COVID thing. And then duking it out for time number 3 is you remember when the USA got downgraded, their debt got downgraded, was that 2010?
Good times. We were doing the show then.
Yeah. And so the year we have had in 2022 is probably, I think, sustained realized vol. 180 realized vol is actually higher. So this is the third most volatile period for the S&P 500. Welcome for Russell to check because every day I think is by observation. I just look at the stuff and go, oh, wow, that's pretty high. But you can feel that it's high. Very unusual market. So, that being said, VIX is working perfectly fine because the 180-day average realized vol. Okay, Mr. Longo, you being a market participant, guess what that number is for the S&P 500? The 180-day realized vol for the S&P 500.
180-day. Oh, we're going out a ways now. Usually hit me with like 30-day or 9-day. 180-day realized vol?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to say 25 and a half.
Holy gosh. You are like, that is good enough for the bullseye.
It's like I've done this before or something.
That was excellent. Because when I looked at it, I think it's when I knew it was going to be at least it was going to be somewhere in zone 4. But you nailed it. Yeah. So 25.33.
That was good. So I was about to say 26, and I dialed myself down at the last minute. I said 25 and a half.
All right, I'm gonna give you a bullseye for that. So. And
by the way, can I just point out, Uncle Mike never gets the guessing games. I always have to do them, and crushing it. Just saying. Scurvy, Rickets, realized vol. Hit me with it. Let's go. Let's dance.
Scurvy, Rickets, those are for the other people. Give me the realized vol. Anyway, that is so again very high vol. So the fact that VIX goes to 20 and the 180-day average.
Yeah, I mean, that's 180 days. That's what threw me. That's a long period. And for that sustained level of vol over 180 days, that's a ton.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. So the fact that VIX is 20 right now is like, in my head, is like, how long can it stay there? Right. So, and that's why, and again, that's for our listeners. And the average in July was 23. The average in June was 22. So you're looking at those kind of numbers, and, traders aren't stupid. Like, liquidity providers aren't dumb. They understand that the market moves. So, VIX is accurately reflecting just a volatile space. So we're at 20. We're down on the day. And I was surprised because the market's not doing much today, right? Like, what's it going to do after that move? Because now everybody's like, okay, well, if Powell's not raising rates, does that mean we're going to have a recession? Well, maybe, right? Which would kind of, this will be the most predicted recession in history, I believe. Because everybody's sure we're going to have a recession in quarter one, and I don't know. Again, it's just a guessing game, but I think a lot of the risk has been dumped on the federal government at this point, because the Fed was the one that bought all the bonds. I mean, you got to look. They're the QE people. They bought all that junk. They're going to hold it until it rolls off. So, I think again, they're taking the more. It would be nice if the government stopped spending money. And to that thing where the government clearly is not talking to anybody at the Fed, but they're going to guarantee Fannie and Freddie are not going to guarantee $1 million mortgages. Like, why do people that can afford to buy $1 million house need that kind of goodie from the federal government? I do not get that at all. So again, that is a pro-inflationary thing, and they still engage in this behavior. So from as far as the federal government goes, nobody over there is getting any memo. So Powell is going to continue to raise. I'm sorry, I think that's what's going to happen. You're going to get 50 basis points. That's what he said. The only thing from a vol point of view is how low does volatility go that, if you're looking at VIX, to accept kind of the market condition that we have. Like, so we have this inflation. It ain't going away. There's still supply chain issues. There's still labor supply issues. There's still energy supply issues. And almost all of these are policy related. They're all fixable. So at some point, this might change. But currently, I don't see any policy coming out of there that's going to fix anything. Could change. It could change. But as far as VIX goes, you need a couple weeks of not much going on. Now, the fact that we already know what the Fed is going to do in 2 weeks, that should drive volatility lower. So depending on how much, one of the other factors, we've talked about this all year. The Russians are still in Ukraine. We still have inflation. We still have tight energy supplies. We still have supply chain problems. We still have labor supply problems. We still have the government spending too much money. Nothing has been solved. The only thing that anybody can point to is the fact that the Fed is raising, and they're going to probably, now it appears, that you have some kind of cap on what the Fed funds rate will be sometime in 2023. That's the only real known thing of all these market disruptions we've had. So where does that leave? I think that probably leaves VIX maybe 19 or 18 low tops for this December cycle, maybe that low, unless another shoe drops somewhere else. And they have, I believe, Congress is going to avert the rail strike. And I don't know if anybody saw those contracts, but, rail unions were getting a good thing there. So it's not like it was a terrible do for them. They're getting a lot of goodies. So anyway, that's what's VIX. We're in a huge contango. So there's huge potential in the curve, which is bad for UVXY, bad for all the long vol products. Because VIX can sit here and all those products can just die. And I think UVXY is in the 6 handle now, as you remarked. So it is already well on its way to death. Yes, 753 UVXY. It's actually about to go red on the day, and VXX is red on the day. So
that's getting perilously low. The reverse split's got to be kicking in.
They got to split it, which is when it's fun, right? when I love it when they split it 10-1 at 70. But now they kind of cheated us, and they go, okay, we're going to split it, 6-1 or some kind of stupid ratio to screw everybody.
If they split this back to 70, that would be amazing.
It would be like a gift from God.
That would be a true gift from the market gods to all of you listeners. What's funny is
they're going to split it when VIX is at 20, right? Normally, when they have to do this, reverse split, like vol is in the toilet. Like VIX is nothing, right? Because it just has shredded all the future values. You actually have, the Jan contract is 25, right? Or very close to 25. I got to look now, but so. Like these things, they could split it. It could go to 70, and it could be down 50% in like 6 weeks if the vol actually came down. So again, I think there is potential high living in the vol products. Okay, when those things split. So I've belabored all this enough, and I've had my rant. And I just guess I was jealous because I was not in on the crickets or the Rickets and Scurvy conversation. So I had to make my own way.
That perked your ears up. You like a little bit of Rickets and Scurvy love over there on the shores of Maine. Hey, there's malnutrition to go around for everyone out there. I'm looking right now at the split history for UVXY. They last reverse split it. It was 10-1, listeners. It was back on May 26th of last year. So we are over a year from the reverse split. So they can't do 10-1. 70? I would love it. That would be amazing, but I can't imagine them doing 10. I can't see exactly what the price was here when they reverse split it last time, but 10-1. Hey, let's all hope and pray together, listeners, that we get we come back on the show on Monday, and the UVXY is hanging out at a 76. Oh, sink your teeth into that goodness. Speaking of sink into your teeth, our chat's having a ball there. Nichols, Options Queen, Option God, all having fun in there, a bunch of others. Nichols saying, nice pick, Mr. Long. That's why you're the man. Yes, thank you. Thank you. That 180 did throw me for a curveball for a second, going back that far from a realized vol perspective. But as you can see, listeners, there are no curveballs that the Rock Lobster can pitch that I won't step up to the plate and hit out of the park. Uncle Mike, he's afraid to swing. He doesn't get up there. But I go up there and I take my swings fearlessly out here. Let's see what else is lighting it up. Is VIX fearless today? I don't know. Let's find out. They're actually doing some numbers today. 325,000 contracts on the tape for VIX. That's actually not bad given how light it's been of late, as reflected by the ADV. It continues to erode. It's back down to 551,000 contracts out there. SPY doing a lot of living already. 6.01 million. Like I said, that whipsaw action early in the morning, that usually tends to drive some SPY and SPX paper, and that's pretty much what we're seeing. Again, 6.01 million already on the tape for SPY. The ADV, just 7.5 million. So, spoiler alert, it's going to hit that today. The S, 1.75 million again already. So, looking pretty frothy out there as well. The ADV, 2.58 million. I love to see. We just had the Flowmaster on the Pro Q&A yesterday, and one of the reasons, we've been talking for a while about how the S is hitting these ridiculous numbers. 40% of that volume some days now is these dailies. These dailies that they've just added are apparently just all the rage. No one can get enough of these freaking things out there. So all it took was adding a couple of extra days worth of expirations to the S to completely transform the product. It's fascinating. So these numbers, a lot of these numbers are now just people flocking into the dailies, which is fascinating. If you want to deep dive into that volume, what it means, what are people up to out there? Are they just premium harvesting all day long until the last second? Are they doing other stuff? Check out that Pro Q&A with the Flowmaster yesterday. You'll get a good taste of it. Maybe we'll be getting a little more Flowmaster on the show going forward. We shall see. He's a fun one to have on there with a lot of good data he brings to the table. The S, 1.75 million contracts on the tape. The ADV, about 2.6 million. IWM, small caps, 415,000 already. So looking pretty robust out in small cap land as well. The ADV 805. So that has fallen off. It was nearly 1 million not too long ago, but it's already back at north of half of that. If you want more info on all things small caps, I'll be back in about exactly an hour with Dan the Man Gramza to break down everything going on. You know what I mean? Everything. If I throw a product to Dan, he will take it, the bit in his teeth, and run with it and give you more info than you thought humanly possible. So stay tuned for that. Dan's always a fun one. And then the Qs hanging out a little bit shy of 2 million, 1.99 million contracts right now. The ADV, 2.65 million out there for the Qs. In terms of most active, what's lighting it up? Is it a busy single name day? No, sometimes these whipsaw days can generate a little bit of paper out there. And that's pretty much what we're seeing out there right now. Good old Softy hanging out at number 10. Was the Rock Lobster's favorite? I'm not sure if he's as big into Softy anymore. They're, of course, coming under fire as a result of this whole Activision deal. Sony's been crying foul for a while. They're going to take all these big popular gaming titles and make them exclusive to the Xbox. That's a monopoly. All these other things have been going on out there. And sounds like the Justice Department is listening to those complaints. Microsoft off another about $1.33 right now, about 0.5%, trading a little bit shy at 254 right now. Of course, it's still a ways away from its 52-week low of 213, which it hit not that long ago. It hit 213 back. Yeah, it was this month. It was November 3rd. So I should say last month now into December. But still, it wasn't that long ago, listeners, that hit 214 and 213 and a half about. So 254, it has rallied quite a ways from there. Number 9, out to China. What is going on with China? Is it good? Is it bad? Are they burning cities down? Are they locking it down? What's going on? Let's look at BABA, 309,000 contracts, also off about $1.33, just like Microsoft. That's about 1.5%, trading about around 86.20 or so. All right. Now, this one's had over $3 range, got as high as 87.60 and the low of 84.25 today. So this one's done a lot of living already as well. And again, it shows you number 9, 309,000 contracts. That's not bad. Just earlier, I think it was on Monday's show. It took us all the way to number 3, I think, before we broke 300,000. So that was a pretty quiet day. Not today. Number 8, the chip zone coming early, listeners. It's AMD, 383,000 contracts. So AMD is not really that far away from its usual number. It's usually somewhere around 400,000. It's just getting pushed down by all this other paper going on today, which is interesting. Number 7, back. Oh, so by the way, AMD right around $77 or off about 70 cents right now. Then we've got the old flicks, Netflix, coming in at number 7. Haven't seen them in a little bit. Usually when they make our top 10, it's bad business for them. But today, they are popping off to the races nearly 11. Handles 3.6%, 316.5. Is this just all on the backs of this Wednesday thing? I don't know what's driving it. I see a lot of people talking about Wednesday being a huge hit for them. Is that enough to drive the stock up 11 handles? Well, something's popping it today. Again, good for 412,000 contracts on number 7. On number 6, the chip zone, again, the second half of the chip zone coming right here at number 6 today, 415,000. So again, NVIDIA, 172 right now, up about 271 or so. So NVIDIA and AMD both doing about the numbers we usually expect from them, just getting pushed down by a bunch of other things, including the return of the king of the apes, AMC. Man, they're popping this bad boy today. Is it meme stock time again? Are the apes back? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. AMC, 860 right now, up about $1.36 or nearly 20%, about 19%. Listen, nice little pop for them. 579,000 contracts on the tape for AMC. My goodness. They're coming for AMC today. Number 3, another A name. It's the Amazonians, 590,000. So just barely squeaking past AMC today. Amazon off about $1 or trading about 95.60. It's about where it was, I think, actually, when we posted that poll a couple of weeks ago. It was a little bit shy of 100, I think. And then, of course, both it and Facebook sold off pretty hard, have rallied since then, and now given some of that back. Number 2, yes, it is the perpetual number 2, the also ran of options volume. It is Apple, the fruit company. It's like, I'm looking at it as unched right now. Yeah, it is unched. That's strange. You don't see that too often. It's net unched right now. It's had looks like about a $2.50 range. Got down to about 146.60 on the downside and about 149.13 on the upside. So decent range today, actually unched right now. Good for 752,000 contracts. And number 1, you know what it is. It's the old Tesla, 1.48 million contracts. This one also unched today after having a pretty decent range. Got down to a little bit shy of 192 and up as high as almost 199. So a little over $7 range on the day, and yet unched literally again right now where we're hanging out, listeners. Good for 1.48 million contracts on the tape. If you're looking at earnings, there are still some names popping off, listeners. We have Intuit and Build-A-Bear and Snowflake and Victoria's Secret all popping off this week. Dollar, Kroger today, Big Lots, Land's End, and a whole bunch more. We have earnings move results. Let's hit a couple of these really quickly. I know we got to get into the odd block. Here, let's go to Snowflake. They were yesterday after the bell. 143 is where they were going into their announcement. They're pricing in 12.1%. Listeners, get this. They moved 3.7%. We were talking about a lot of names are pricing in a fair amount of juice. And Snowflake, not delivering out there. Let's go to Five Below. They were yesterday after the bell as well. 160, almost 161 is where they were going into their announcement. They're pricing in 7.7%. They delivered 16%. So a banger there for Five Below. So flipping the script entirely. Dollar General, they were this morning. 255 is where they were going into their announcement. They're pricing in 5.1%. They delivered 8.1%. So a little bit of outperformance there. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Big Lots this morning as well. 19.5 is where they were going into their announcement. They're pricing in 14.1%. They delivered about 11.7%. So not a huge differential there. And in terms of what's coming up, we've got Marvell after the bell today, Ulta after the bell today as well, and a whole bunch of others coming up in the coming weeks. If you want to see the season, listeners, hanging out at about a 117% right now. We just had Mr. Matt join me on the advisors option. We did a deep dive into these earnings reports, so check that out if you've missed that. You want a little bit more color on these numbers. And in terms of earnings trades, we're adding a new long calendar in good old everyone's favorite, OKTA. And we're also buying a straddle in SMAR. So new trades being put onto, actually, I'm sorry, they're exiting that calendar in OKTA, but they're putting on a new straddle in SMAR. So two trades, I should say, for you to check out there as we are tracking, oh goodness, how many? 77 long straddles and 49 long calendars for your trading edumacation out there. As we keep on rolling, it's time to get weird. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, let's get to it, listeners. Let's start off by paying off a name we talked about on Monday's show. This is everyone's favorite. This is Camping World Holdings. We talked about a weird, almost bit of a calendar strangle. It was weird. We talked about Camping World, of course, ticker symbol CWH. I won't tell you where it's trading right now, a bit of a spoiler. But at the time, we talked about nearly 1,875 of the December 27 puts expiring on the 2nd, so tomorrow. Paper buying those through the offer for a little over 91 cents. Again, about 2,000 times when we talked about it. A total of 2,400 went up on the day. And then we also talked about the other side of that strangle. We saw a few minutes apart, 1,132 of the December expiring next week, so on the 9th, 27 half calls going up for 75 cents, lifting the offer there. So it seemed like a funky time strangle. You don't see those too often. Somebody keep an eye on that because obviously the puts are going out tomorrow. And so checking into those right now, it looks like they did a total of 2,400, like we said. So a little bit more went up after our initial analysis. And it looks like they bailed on close to 800 of them the very next day. They decided to get the heck out of Dodge. They bought them for 91 cents. They dumped them for about 52 cents, prices in that range. So they lost somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 cents, depending on where they didn't get all of them 52 cents. So you're talking, they dropped around 32 grand on that 800 lot. The rest were still open. They are still open right now. And the stock was looking pretty rough. It was 27.61. So it seemed like they were going to be out of luck and they were going to drop somewhere around close to $130,000 on the rest of the paper. But stock continues to drop. It's down to about 27.25 right now. And they still have a day to go. So they need this thing to fall out of bed. They bought these for 91 cents, but they have a better shot now than they did a few minutes ago. So Mr. Rock Lobster, first off, is Camping World your favorite name? And then B, it seems like maybe they bailed on some of those puts, but the rest, they don't have much of a chance, but they have a chance now. A little bit better chance than they did earlier, Mr. Rock Lobster.
Well, Camping World, it's funny you should say this because I have noticed several stocks related to outdoor activities that have struggled lately, like CLAR and what is it? Another ticker is B. I got it on my list here. B. I think a lot of these stocks have gotten kind of hurt. So let's see, what is it? B. It's B. I'm trying to find it. Oh yeah, it's VSTO is another one. Smith and Wesson, VFC, although it's up today. Like outdoor, like ammunition, gun hunting, all that kind of stuff related. So you bring up this Camping World, and like, okay, it was a weird time to strangle. Total of 2,400. They bailed on 800 puts for 52 cents. The rest are still open, and then they bought. So those are the 9th, and then so they bought the puts on the 2nd, and then they bought calls on the 9th.
Yeah, it's a weird, almost time strangle. It's funky.
Yeah, which actually I like those trades just because, well, depending on the situation, but sometimes like the market likes to go down fast and then slow to recover. So you have your short delta short term and your long delta long term. Kind of cool. So I actually I sold some puts in some of these names today because they have not participated. They are stocks that the rally has forgot for the most part. So it looks like in this particular one, CWH. Yeah, it's another one, right? Well, like beginning of the year, it was trading $44. It's trading $27. Low of the year, $21. So it's up from the bottom, but it's nowhere near it was the beginning of the year. I mean, a lot of stocks are like that, right? So I guess what they're doing is they didn't really make any hay on the puts. They didn't get the action maybe they wanted around, the Fed. The Fed said whatever they were going to say, and they didn't get enough of a sell-off, so they just took what they could on the puts and maybe try to get, where they get a shot at, the upside. So I like this as a sector. I don't know if I like it in the December 9 time frame as a long, but the stock does kind of have a little choppy activity. It traded as high as 31 at the middle of November. So I don't know, not the worst trade. It doesn't appear they're going to get any love though on those 27 puts at all.
Those seem rough. They're betting on an aggressive whipsaw here in Camping World. Be interesting to see. That's a very precise prediction. We shall see if it plays out. At least right now, it doesn't seem like the puts are going to look that good. But again, they got another day, and the stock is starting to fall out of bed. So maybe that is the worm turning moment that they need. We'll come back in and check. When we pay off the calls next week, listeners, we'll also check on the puts, see how they did. Speaking of calls, let's get out to Spirit Airlines, ticker symbol SAVE. Not my favorite airline. I booked them once almost by accident, and it was the most upselling I've ever seen. Do you want an aisle seat? That'll be X more. Do you want to actually access the overhead bin? That'll be more dollars. Do you want a seatbelt? Do you want to breathe the oxygen? It was disgusting. I vowed after that I will never fly them again. But Spirit Airlines, 21.25, up about 1.25 right now. That's on the year. Let's see. Today, actually off about $0.50. So it's been kind of a bit of a net, almost kind of forgotten year. They did have some moments, though. They got up to about 28.30. That was their high for the year. That was on February 9th. Then they sold off almost immediately after that. So a lot of things were weighing on the market back in the late February, early March period. Got down to 18.5. Then they rallied again. So they had some whipsaw-y action. It got up to almost $27 again on April 5th. Then they sold off hard again, down to 16.35. Actually hit their low for the year, 15.92. That was on May 12th. Then they rallied again up to about 25.66 before selling off again, down to 18.25 in October, and then rallying to where they are right now, 21.30. So if you've been trading the range on this thing, you've been doing all right out. This thing has been moving, even though net on the year, not much. If you've been just holding Spirit Airlines, not working out right. But let's see. Speaking of writing, that's what we got going on out here, listeners. We've got someone coming in and just overwriting the heck out of the D's 22. So about 75 cent out of the money calls. They got 30 cents for these bad boys, which I guess if you look at this chart and see how many times it's whipped around, it might make some sense. That's about a 30 vol, listeners. They did it 20,000 times. So not bad. The stock was a little bit north of here, 21.48, so about 20 cents higher. There are no earnings between now and December expiration. It's just a straight up getting a little bit of the old risk premium back, Mr. Rock Lobster. So, hey, not bad. What's a cool $600,000 amongst friends for a few days' work, sir?
I don't think that's bad. Do you?
That's multiple Ferraris for all your significant others, sir.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably 2 really nice cars, maybe 3. Again, it looks like Pension Fund Central trying to pay the bills with a buy right. So again, I don't think it's bad. It's bad strategy. I wrote some calls against stock myself over the last couple of days. So, hey, VIX is still 20 something, and we just had like a humdinger of a rally to 4,000. So it might not be a bad time to let a few calls go. But yeah, I think that, standard buy right practice, nothing crazy there. But I'll tell you what, though, I'm airline stocks, and I have no interest in them. Saying in 2022, they have not been able to fly me back to my home state, so I'm just out totally.
They are dead to you out there. Well, I know what is not dead to you, Mr. Rocklopster. This one is very much alive to you. This is RLX. This is a newcomer to the odd block. This is an ADR out of China, listeners. Trading $2.30 right now, pretty much unched on the day. A year ago, it was trading $4.11. Got up to its high for the year of $4.93 before beginning its long, slow decline. It got down to its low for the year of about 90 cents. That was back in October. And since then, it's had quite the run. It's back up to $2.30. Just over the last month, it's up 68%, 93 cents. So nice little 1 month run here for RLX. On the year, a little bit of a different story. And it seems like Mr. Rock Lobster, maybe someone is betting that the good times are back here in RLX. This is kind of giving me whiffs of the old Vroom, the VRM as well. We saw people coming in this morning and piling. It was just a call palooza, a festival, if you will, out there, Mr. Rock Lobster. First, we saw almost 20,000, 19,450 of the D's 2 halves going up. People are buying those for a quarter. I said we're at about 230 right now, listeners. Then we saw 11,456 of the Jan 2s. So they're not messing around. They're going in the money now, lifting the offer on those for 50 cents. And then that's not enough. They came back to do 8,180 more of the D's 2 halves for 20 cents. These actually looks like those might have been earlier. Those were earlier. Yeah, because they got those for 20 cents. And then so they got 8,000 for 20 cents and another about 20,000 for 25 cents. So Mr. Rock Lobster, just upside call palooza. I know this came across your radar over there today as well. What are your thoughts on this massive call explosion and everyone's new favorite name, RLX Technology?
Yeah. So, what's funny about this is I just bought a couple calls. So on stuff like this, I won't spend more than a couple $100. But like, okay, they did buy 100,000 calls today in the stock. So
they are not playing.
50,000 D's 2.5, 16,000 of the 2s, and another almost 20,000 all the way up from the 2.5 to the 5s in January. And then some scattered purchasing after that. So, you know what their technology is?
I have literally no idea, sir.
Vaping in China.
You know what? Actually, a huge market. A lot of smokers in China.
I thought, hey, you know what? Now, my second thing is the government going to outlaw it? Because the Chinese government lately is like, you remember EDU? There will be no online.
I remember EDU very well, sir.
There will be no online education. I can just say there will be no vaping for you. I could see that happening. I wonder who that person is. The no for you.
You got to think with all their COVID mania that vaping maybe not high on their list of approved activities.
Right. I kind of like in the EU. How the EU grand poobah of internal machinations saying Twitter, you got to watch your free speech thing. Yeah, they're telling Elon Musk, we're going to keep an eye on you. You can't have all this. So I just see these government guys in government that have all this power just to shut down businesses randomly. But anyway, so yes, this is a company is engaged in activities in the e-vapor industry, from scientific research, technology and product development, supply chain management to offline distribution. There you go. They provide closed system, rechargeable e-vapor products with various value-added features.
There we go.
And
Might be a fun oddities candidate tomorrow for some fun flies, or so I'll have to look at it and see what we can pull out. This does give me whiffs of EDU for the Chinese and also the price level. Of course, a little bit of room as well, folks loading up on some upside. That went nowhere. We'll see if these go nowhere. And if this guy or gal ain't playing, listeners, for some size in your new favorite vaping name, RLX. As we keep on rolling, listeners, it's time to get to the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, welcome to the mail block, the portion of the show where you guys take the reins, your questions, your comments. Our question of the week is active right now. Where will VIX close at the end of the year? Get over there at Options to make your voice heard. I don't have time to pay that off right now, listeners, because we're kind of coming up against it, but it will be going until tomorrow. We'll obviously pay it off on vol views tomorrow. Got in our live chat here, Options Queen saying the Meghan Markle and Prince Harry trailer for their show for Netflix dropped this morning. Could that be causing the Netflix number? Hey, your guess is as good as any. Something is driving it up a fair amount out there. So that could be the Meghan Markle. I mean, that makes as much sense as the Wednesday thing to me. Maybe a combo of the two. I don't know. Either way, Netflix having a nice little pop out there today. But let's get to this one here. I feel bad when people have to wait for questions. We've been busy. We were off, obviously, last week, listeners. And this question came in last week from, I like this handle, Duddy Reynolds. I believe this is over there on the old Stock Twits. And he says, good morning. I love the pleasant people, too, the polite ones. Can you please tell me what this means? I know it's how many options are out in the market, but is this really high for this stock? But this is, really high for this stock. This is bearish for a put. Thanks. And so, first off, when my producers first sent this to me, I didn't know what he was talking about, but we dug in and saw that he was talking about AVAYA, A-V-Y-A. And once we pulled it up, Mr. Rock Lobster and Mr. Uncle Mike, we noticed here that there is some size positioning out here that we could see. He talks about the 50,000 open interest, and we went and fired it up, and sure enough, the biggest open position right now is exactly 50,000 of the March 1/2 puts out here in AVAYA, and that's pretty much what he's talking about as well. And you know what? When he sent this in, once I looked at this, Mr. Rock Lobster, it sounded kind of familiar. So I went back and pulled up our archives, and sure enough, we talked about this exact trade back on the September 16th episode of Options Oddities, Mr. Rock Lobster. Does it ring a bell at all to you? AVAYA Holdings? Tell you what, I will break it down for you. Back on the September 16th episode, we talked about what we termed, holy crap, AVAYA puts, because someone came in and blasted out at a ton. 49,955. So all this OI was pretty much opened at once. They weren't playing. Of the 1/2 puts, they sold them for 60 cents. So the stock at the time was $1.64. It is now $1.13, listeners. So yeah, it's moved pretty much 50 odd cents against them. At the time we said, man, it really looks like somebody wants some stock. I mean, they got a fair amount of juice for that, so we couldn't really complain too much. But they're starting to come back to their break-even level. Obviously, they sold them for 60 cents, so they break even around 90 cents, and they're getting perilously close to that. It was a 155 vol. We didn't love it because these things, as we've seen, these stocks, once they get to this level, they can go to zero. But also, they got a ton of freaking premium for it. They got a fair amount of the value of the stock just to sell that put. So we didn't super hate it either. We were kind of in the middle on this one, but we said, certainly seems like someone wanted some stock. And Mr. Rock Lobster, it seems like they're getting their wish because they are way south of the 1/2 handle. Is this one ringing a bell now for you, sir?
It is, because I remember that I had remembered this name from a while ago, like it was a rename or something like that. And it used to be a $30 stock in the beginning of a $20 stock at the beginning of 2022. And it went to $1. Like, what happened? I couldn't.
Shades of Room Motors.
Yeah, but I mean, it actually has a history. Like, it has a fairly long earnings history. So I couldn't quite figure out what the deal was with it, if it's all a shim sham or whatever. But anyway, it looks like somebody's going to be $1.13 right now, so they're going to be owning it.
So yes, short answer to your question there. What was the name? Duddy Reynolds is yes, that is a lot of put open interest for this name, and they did it all at once. and they sold these. And it looks like they're owning themselves some stock. They're still looking good. They break even at 90. But again, it's a dicey prospect whenever you sell puts on a $1.50 stock. There's a good chance you could be wearing it all the way down to zero. In this sense, if they get below 90, they will be sweating. They have until March, obviously, so they got some time. But yes, that is a lot of, I wouldn't say that's instantly bearish, though, because they didn't buy those puts. It looks like they sold them. So they looks like they may actually want the stock. So in that sense, they think maybe down the road, it was just $20, as the Roth Lobster said, not too long ago. So maybe they're bouncing, or they should say betting on a bit of a bounce, a bit of a turnaround out there in AVAYA. So interesting. That's why when you look at OI and that kind of stuff, it pays to dig a little bit. You can't just assume 50,000 puts, they want this thing to go to zero. It seems like it's actually a wee bit of the opposite as we keep on rolling and go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block. And you know we've been doing a lot of trades when people are hitting us up with trades we've already talked about back in September. We do so much unusual activity here on the network. Listeners, including Options Oddities, a whole show about it. So if you like hearing me and the Rock Lobster kibitz about crazy trades and also talking ourselves into crazy trades, like the aforementioned EDU and others, then check out Options Oddities. It's a fun one. TheOptionInsider.com/pro is the place to go. All right. He's been waiting patiently all show long. He dodged that guessing the realized vol for 180 days question, but now he's back. The Unklest of Mike, sir. What are you keeping an eye on for the rest of this week? And since we're coming up against it, where can folks also go if they want to learn more about the Unklest of Mike's?
I mean, just watching to see if we can break through the 4,100 level. We touched it and did not break through it today. It's obviously a key number. So watching that, watching the employment report coming out tomorrow. And if you are interested in working with a financial advisor in the option space, assuming it's appropriate for the client, feel free to reach out to me. You can check out my website, stcharleswealth.com, or follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW. I try to put out as much content as I can.
He's quite the content factory. Not quite up to our level, obviously, but he's chugging along for a one-man show. Check him out over there. stcharleswealth.com is the place to go. And Mr. Rock Lobster, what are you watching for the rest of this week? And where should folks go if they want to learn more about all things pit?
So Mike is worried looking at 4,100. I'm looking at 4,000. Can we hold? Can we hold? And can VIX trade in the 19 handle for the first time in like 4 or 5 months? So we are 32 cents away, and we got 2 hours today. It might happen. And seeing if, you know, if the interest rate hikes are kind of known, and now we'll have to just worry about all the other stuff that's wrong in the world. So very interesting part. And again, 888-TRADE-01. Ask Ted or other Andrew. Say, hey, I heard the show. Give me 10% off. You can. So where can you get a better deal?
Where indeed. OptionPit.com is the place to go. We got to get on out of here, listeners, but don't worry. If you listen in live, all our pro folks in the chat, have some fun, chat amongst yourselves. We'll put some fun stuff in there for you guys to listen to. We're back in exactly 28 minutes with Dan the Man Gramza to break down everything going on in the world of all things futures, options. You know it's going to be pretty thorough, so look forward to that. Dan always brings the heat when he joins us on TWIFO. Then back again tomorrow, noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern for Vol Views. Got our buddy, Mr. Simon Ho, the Spikes father himself, joining us on Vol Views tomorrow, beaming in from across the pond. I believe it's like 5 a.m. Sydney time when he joins us. So he really wants it. He really likes talking to you folks to put that level of effort. He's waking up at 5 a.m. on a weekend just to talk to you folks. Vol Views tomorrow, noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, followed by what we're just talking about, Options Oddities, all those AVAYA puts and all the other fun, EDU, everything else, all the other madness we get up to on that show is coming up after Vol Views. You can check that one out, of course, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. But we'll be back in a little bit for TWIFO, and then again tomorrow for all the shows, and then back again on Monday. Another episode of The Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or Search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.